Hey there, this is the beginning of a series going over various Sonic games I consider to be mainline. Here is the full list of games I'll cover so you're not confused. This first entry is about Sonic Forces, so let's begin. I'm not gonna go over the whole quote-unquote rocky history Sonic has had since his debut into 3D, because let's be real, it's simply not true. The history of 3D Sonic is rocky, yes, but it didn't start out rocky. The adventure games are really great and were well received at launch. It was all thanks to the late 2000s and 2010s era of Sonic that people started to consider this mindset. The 2000s were still cooking with some good games, sure, and the effects of what happened didn't fully appear yet. But the 2010s era of the franchise was disappointing, to say the least. It started off great, with Colors and especially Generation still being praised to this day. It was everything else that happened in this decade that really shook everything on its head. Sonic Lost World was a weird deviation from the boost formula that frankly never should have existed in the first place. Sonic Boom: Rise of Lyrics single-handedly made the sub-franchise seem worse than it was, and the handheld systems didn't have anything on the same level as the previous generations. However, in July 2016, we finally got our first look at the next mainline 3D Sonic game, with a beautiful CGI trailer featuring Sonic looking a lot more serious than he did in the last few games. Classic Sonic showing up again, that's cool, and a few big guys at the end shooting the camera with text saying, "Join the Resistance, Holiday 2017. Now, I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't there during the hype before the game launched. I just saw it around, thought it looked cool, and played it. From what I can tell from looking at certain sources, people were pretty pumped. I mean, it was 5 years since Generations at the time of this trailer's release, and the trailer even stated that it was being made by the team behind that game and Colors. What could go wrong? Well, the next time we got info about the game was over half a year later, in March of 2017, in a short, 40-second video showcasing one of the levels. To be fair, people seemed pretty excited. The level was visually gorgeous, red ring collectibles were present, and wisps were there for some reason. People were quick to point out the linearity and simpleness of the level design, however, as it wasn't nearly as exciting as the previous Boost games. Others theorized that this would be part of the first level of the game though, which would kind of make the simple level design make sense. Anyways, we finally got the name for this brand new Sonic game, Sonic Forces, with the release date reiterated as Holiday 2017. The next look at the game we got was a month later with one of the classic Sonic stages. I wonder what they're doing with it. Green Hell. This was when Green Hell fatigue really started to set in, so people were pretty disappointed to see this damn place again. Not only that, but the music was ass, we didn't see any new major mechanics, and the level was only a minute and a half long as we see the full thing here. The only slightly new thing they added here was sand. There's sand in a few places. So creative. But again, defenses showed. It could be the first level, it could be a placeholder, stuff like that. People were cautiously optimistic for what would be shown next, and what we got next turned people on their heads. A brand new gameplay style, featuring a custom character which you can change the look of, a brand new gadget system designed for that custom character, and lyrics within the song in the background. Just from looking at the comments from this trailer compared to the others, people were pretty excited. Albeit mainly because of the song having lyrics, I guess that was a big selling point at the time. But still, this was much more exciting than whatever the hell we got before. The same day, we also got a trailer confirming the existence of a character creator in this game, which in concept, is a genius thing for a Sonic game. Think about it. One of the most popular things for a Sonic fan to do to express their love for the franchise is to create a Sonic OC. This character creator would allow people to place their own characters within an official Sonic game, which is brilliant on paper. Note that I said on paper. Anyhow, this trailer had more of that beautiful CGI from the first trailer in 2016. With the game in a much better position than before, Sonic fans around the world went into E3 excited as ever to see what else the game was cooking up. Remember E3? This trailer from E3 showed us basically everything we already knew for the first half, except for the fact that the Egg Dragoon is back. Okay, fine. But the second half is where it's at. We get a look at 4 of the main villains of this game returning from previous games, those being Shadow, Metal Sonic, Zavok, and Chaos. Zavok was a strange choice, but the others returning as villains was pretty hype, not gonna lie. Chaos especially was a surprising one, as not only has he not appeared since Adventure 1, he also technically died in that game, so what's up with that? After all of those guys, we get a good look at the poster child of this game, Infinite, who does some wacky shit with his red squares, an infinity symbol is shown, probably to foreshadow his name, and the trailer ends to a resounding "Let's go!" from the fans. People speculated on the story. Why is Shadow evil? Why is Chaos back? Why'd they choose Zavok? Who's this guy at the end? It must have been a pretty exciting time to be a Sonic fan. Anyways, a month later we got a video showcasing Infinite, which was honestly pretty cool. His theme plays in the background, he beats up Sonic, he mentions his name, a funny symbol appears on screen, and the trailer ends. This trailer shows that Infinite isn't your average Sonic villain. He's cunning, collected, and strong enough to be able to land a few shots on Sonic in fact. Next up is the trailer showcasing the fourth and final gameplay style, one with a combination of your OC and Sonic teaming up to show the world what they can do. People likened it to Sonic Heroes and seemed pretty excited about it. However, of course, there was the crowd of people who still weren't sold on the game. The gameplay still looked linear, uninteresting, and too basic. God, it's sad reading some of these comments, you have no idea. Then, out of nowhere, we get confirmation of a Shadow DLC campaign, with brand new levels designed around the ultimate life form. This game just keeps getting more and more interesting by the second. A few days later came a story trailer which shows that Eggman has taken over the world, and our favourite characters have to form a resistance to take him, Infinite, and the others down. This is a really solid outline for a new Sonic story. We also finally got the release date of November 7th, with pre-orders available the day of the trailer's release. As long as they don't mess it up, this could be one of the best games in the franchise. After a few more level showcase trailers throughout the next few weeks, the game finally releases, and what's the verdict? Yeah, it was alright. Most people were pretty mixed on the game. Some people thought it was a 6 out of 10, others a 4 out of 10. No major feelings, that's all. After all that hype, we get an experience of which the general consensus is pretty lukewarm. That is absolutely diabolical of Sega to do. And even then, that general consensus is wrong. This game is absolutely terrible in almost every single aspect. Every level design choice, every story aspect, every gameplay choice makes absolutely no sense and creates an experience that I absolutely despise. Back when I played this game on Christmas 2017, I did like it, but I was a dumb stupid child then. This video will go into every single aspect as to why this game blows ass, from the story to the gameplay and everything in between. And when I say every single aspect, I truly mean it. I will not leave a single thing out that I did not find, which is why the video is as long as it is. Now, let me say that before we begin, if you like this game, that is perfectly okay in my books. It's truly awesome that you got something out of this experience that I didn't, and you shouldn't feel offended at all by this video. I simply want to make this video as a cautionary tale about what I think is the absolute bottom of the barrel for mainline Sonic. If you want to make a video going over why this game is actually a secret masterpiece and stuff, go ahead, I'm not gonna complain. That's the beauty of the internet, you have different opinions and stuff. With that said, let's talk about the few things I actually like about this game. As with pretty much every Sonic experience you can have, the music in this game is really good. I know this soundtrack is pretty controversial overall, but I really enjoy a lot of songs here. It's not my favourite one in the franchise, far from it in fact, and there are some pretty awful songs in it, like every classic Sonic song, but the good songs are really good. My favourite modern Sonic songs are Egg Gate, and Mortar Canyon. My favourite Avatar stages are Fighting Onward Spaceport, and Virtual Enemies Capital City. And the rest of the soundtrack is pretty great too. Obviously you can't talk about this game's OST without mentioning Fist Bump. I really enjoy the song, yes, but I feel like it's ruined by its overuse in the game itself, similar to 7 Rings in Hand from Sonic and the Secret Rings. For every double boost segment to use a version of this really reduces the impact of it, and just makes those segments feel like they're begging to make you feel something. I still like the song though. My favourite song in the game is absolutely Infinite's theme, however. It's edgy, sure, but you might know my opinion on games like Shadow 05, so I'm all over this song. Visually, this game does have some nice looking areas. I like the frozen over chemical plant, the Sunset Heights area is pretty much the only place where war is represented and it does look pretty cool. And areas like Metropolitan Highway are visually very sound. It doesn't reach the heights of a game like Unleashed for me, but it's still really good. I also think the idea of a Sonic game taking place in the middle of a war zone isn't a terrible idea, as are a ton of the other ideas this game presents. Sonic being captured and tortured for 6 months could have left a mark on him, giving him such a different character arc than we're used to. The character arc of the Avatar learning to be confident in themselves and go off on their own adventures could be really sound, and Infinite as an antagonist is, on paper, really cool. I gotta be perfectly honest here, there are some levels in the game I do quite enjoy playing, such as Metropolitan Highway, Null Space, and the Shadow DLC levels. We'll go more into them when we talk in depth about the levels. Finally, the Shadow DLC itself is really cool, as it was the first time we got to play as the Ultimate Lifeform since 06, at least in terms of mainline games. I also really love that they remixed some Shadow 05 songs. Representation of that game is really neat to me. Oh, we got Team Dark together as well. There was clear effort put into this DLC which the rest of the game lacked. Speaking of the rest of the game, I think it's time we start absolutely demolishing it now. So let's begin. We are in for a long ride. Now, I'm sure you're all aware of the fact that Sonic Forces does not have very good level design. Saying that the guys behind Colors and Generations were behind this was pretty much a lie, as the level designers were all completely new to the franchise, outside of one who worked on Lost World. You know, the weird deviation that was completely different to the previous games and was barely mentioned after release? Yes, great indeed, quite indubitably. There are so many problems with each individual level in terms of design, to the point where we're going to go through every single level in the game in order and go over its problems. Whilst we do it, I'll rank them in a tier list because they're fun, especially in comparison to the game. So once again, strap yourselves in, because we'll be here for a while. Beginning with Stage 1 Lost Valley, you can immediately see the problems arise. The first 15 seconds are just running straight before you get a boost capsule, where you then boost, jump, homing attack chain, jump, 2D section. This 2D section is extremely basic. You can pretty much just play as you see without thinking and you get to the final section, where after one of the worst one-liners Sonic has had, you just boost forward and win. For 20 seconds. You have to press buttons like 7 times max. There is one alternate path at the end here, but it doesn't matter as they both end up being automated boosting segments for pretty much the same length of time. All you do is watch stuff happen, press a button a few times, watch stuff happen, Jova. I understand that this is supposed to be a tutorial level, but just look at City Escape, Emerald Coast, Green Hill Zone. They do a fantastic job at letting you get used to the controls while still being a joy to revisit on subsequent playthroughs. Not off to a strong start, immediately with an F tier stage and my 5th least favourite stage in the game. Next is Spaceport, the first Avatar stage. The Avatar is just okay to play as. The Burst Wisp one you start with is easily the best, as it constantly produces hitboxes in front of you, which is the direction you're always going. The other Wisp ones really aren't worth trying, as every collectible is easily obtained with Burst outside of, like, 2, and some Wisp-on types are just awful. You're never encouraged to change Wisp-on because you just go forward and win all the time. The lack of a boost button really hinders their gameplay too, as it makes them feel so much more like a slog in comparison to Sonic. About a minute into the stage, we get our first QTE. It's 18 seconds long, and has a single input. Unleashed does this stuff all over the place with multiple inputs a second, lasting a single second. This level is more involved than the first thanks to the lack of a boost button, but it's just boring thanks to the lack of speed, exciting pathways, or intense button presses. You can skip a ton with the burst Wisp-on's ability, but it just makes you press one button a lot for no reason other than skipping platforming monotonously. Overall, better than Lost Valley, but not by much. F tier. Great song, however. Ghost Town, the first classic Sonic stage. Oh boy, do I have some choice words for classic Sonic. Physics are basically non-existent for him, so there's no point where you can get major boosts of speed, which is the whole entire draw with classic Sonic gameplay. We'll be seeing this point in full force in a later stage, but it's still present here. You can really only build speed on slopes and ramps by rolling, which is so not fun and really annoying. In terms of the level design, however, because classic Sonic is exclusively in 2D, it means we don't get many boring moments of waiting to play the game. It still happens, of course, but even if the level designs themselves aren't the worst, they're a far cry from what the games from the 90s and the game that came out mere months before this one had. Also, some of the death pits on the bottom route literally have springs to baby you into beating the damn level. How do you think this is okay? F tier, but a little better than the last two due to the lack of automation in comparison. On to one of the stages I actually kinda like, Prison Hall. Don't get me wrong, it's not on Generations or Unleashed levels of good, but I'd put it around where most of the decent Colors levels would be. This level really shows the linearity of the game well, as every branching path plays the exact same. You either go up, or down, then meet together after a few seconds. There's also a drift the avatar automatically does. It's the only time it's ever used in the game. Even after all of these complaints, I'd still say that it's fun to make it to the higher parts, and I especially like the quick-stepping segment at the end. I have some choice words for quick-stepping in this game later, but this one is fast, has you making fast decisions, and has a real risk of losing time if you fall to a lower path. Overall, despite all the things holding this level back, I still enjoy my time here a little, and it has a satisfying flow to it, so it's in B tier. The first boss fight of the game against Zavok is my second favourite in the game. It's still just pretty decent. He starts with spawning little robot bees you homing attack, then a laser which follows your movement so you keep moving. He then slams the ground, which gives you a chance to attack him. After doing that again, but a little more difficult, the arena becomes smaller and he starts charging at you whilst throwing bees at you. These charges replace the laser attack and are a pretty decent escalation of difficulty. After attacking him twice, Sonic automatically beats the shit out of him and the fight's over. I think this fight's easy, yes, but it's consistently fine the whole way through and is a neat way of tying Lost World and this game together. Don't know why you tied this game with that one, but oh well. B tier for bees. Here it is. This is widely considered to be one of the best levels in the game, and for good reason. Eggate is a glimpse into the idea of this game actually cooking with its concept, as it's genuinely fun. There's a ton of inputs you're doing, multiple branching paths that only last a few seconds, yes, but are at least visually distinct, and the 2D sections have a lot going on too. There's these block structures that protrude out when you step on them, so you have to try and land on the end block to reach the spring, and it works! It's a fun new mechanic that doesn't slow you down. The threat of a crushing ceiling always works wonders, and wait, what's this? We're going on these Eggman ships? Oh, what are we going to do? There's so many possibilities with this! Oh, it's just a QTE. Then the level ends. One big problem with this level is how long it takes to get to the good stuff. There's so much automation in between the solid 3D stuff and the really solid 2D stuff. Like this boring quick stepping section that's easier than the Avatar one from before. This final section with the QTE is really disappointing too. We should have been able to fly around on one of these like how Knight's Shield works in Frontiers. One more thing I haven't touched up on yet but will be a consistent problem with pretty much every level going forward, is the length. You'll be lucky to play a stage in this game which lasts more than 3 minutes, which is absolutely insane considering the amount of not playing you'll be doing in them. Overall, however, the actual playing this stage gives me is good enough to make it my second favourite stage in the whole game, shooting it right up to S tier. Man, I'm having fun with this game right now, I wonder if this will keep up. Arsenal Pyramid houses one of the craziest things in this game. There is a grand total of 20 seconds of gameplay at the beginning, where all you do is boost and jump, Then we reach an automated segment where you blast through enemies with no gameplay for another 18 seconds until a free-falling segment begins the inside of the pyramid, which you can stay still for most of it. It never fails to amaze me how stupid this beginning is. The inside segment is a little better, but you can skip all of it with the use of the burst responsibility. This stage is like the perfect middle ground of absolutely terrible automation and actual gameplay which is pretty decent if you take the right paths. For those reasons, I'll place it in C tier. Now's also a good time to mention how every time you get your Wisp-on's Wisp, the Colors announcer shouts their name, and it gets really annoying with this one.
Burst!
Here we go, everyone. The poster child for the automated bullshit levels in this game, Luminous Forest. This entire level consists of 18 seconds of automated boosting to a 2D segment. A 2D segment that is unnecessary and does nothing interesting, and it lasts 20 seconds. Followed by 35 seconds of boosting with a homing attack chain in the middle, followed by a QTE with a snake lasting another 30 seconds. Then the level ends? What is this? How did they manage to get away with this? You've probably seen or at least heard of the video where someone beats this stage without touching the analog stick, and it shows. This is easily the most pathetic stage in the entire game in terms of content. The easiest F tier I've given in my life. We've just reached the halfway point in F tier, so yeah, we've still got a long way to go. Welcome to the first Infinite fight. You fight Infinite 3 times throughout the game, with the first one having you run towards him on the snake from the QTE in the previous level. The funny Infinite blocks create various formations which you have to avoid, and there are parts where you homing attack chain fake Infinites to reach the real one. One of my favourite aspects of these fights is the fact that if you get hit by one of the Infinite blocks, you start to hallucinate harder attacks to avoid. This is a really cool concept that makes you lock in whenever you take damage. It should have been used throughout the entire game more. Unfortunately, the fight itself is very simple and short, unlike most of the other levels, so it isn't a great one, but I'll be nice this time and place this in B tier below the Zavok fight. Also, the text for the bosses is literally written in Calibri font. This isn't a major problem, but come on, Comic Sans would have at least been funny. Green Hell, Green Hell. That is genuinely the name of this level. This is just kind of a worse version of Green Hill from Sonic 1. There's nothing interesting to say about it, and it has no identity of its own. The design itself isn't bad per se, but it's just super forgettable. Plus the fact that Classic Sonic controls almost as bad as Secret Rings. One of the better Classic Sonic levels in this game, but still quite awful, D tier. Versus Eggman, oh boy. They really had the gall to start the boss fight like that. It's just the first boss from Sonic 1, but in HD. This pisses me off to no end, at least change the platform layout or something. I'd argue it's easier here due to the slower speed Eggman goes at. The second phase is at least a little more interesting, but please use anything other than the Egg Dragoon. That one fight in Unleashed was the only great use of it, don't at me. For this phase, you jump over his shots, jump onto the boulders he throws at you, you win. You have this insane, giant mech, and you make a boss fight this underwhelming with it. This is easier than all the boss fights from before in the game. It's so dumb. F tier. My 4th least favourite stage in the game. Park Avenue, another Avatar stage. Honestly, for how monotonous the Avatar's gameplay can become, I came out of each level with more positive thoughts than expected. These levels can flow really well at some points, and this one has glimpses of a flow. There's another route you can take to skip a ton of content like all the previous levels, and here's the main problem with them. They're easy. The top route in every Sonic game in existence from the beginning has always been the more challenging one. This stuff just has you pressing a button a lot to go fast to get the S rank, which, speaking of, is super easy throughout the whole game. You are lucky to get an S rank in games like Unleashed and Colors, and I can tolerate Generations having easy S ranks due to the levels themselves being that fun to play through. I left my first playthrough of Forces with only 3 levels without an S rank. 3! If there's no challenge to get the S rank, there's no drive to replay the stage. This is a bit of a tangent, I know, so just keep in mind that every level aside from a select few has this problem. Park Avenue gets a low B tier from me, all due to the surprisingly satisfying flow at some points. What drove Sonic Team to develop a stage around physics in a game that basically has none? Casino Forest is the worst classic Sonic stage in the game. Pinball physics are better than the slope physics at least, but that doesn't make it fun to bounce around like this. You jump at the same rate on the bumpers no matter where you are, and it straight up looks like a little Timmy Mario Maker level at some points. This brings me to a point which I don't see many people bring up. Why is there so many rings? There's just so many rings in these stages, especially the avatars ones, and it takes no effort to get them. Unleashed has you get a ton of rings, sure, but the game's difficulty makes it satisfying to reach the end without taking damage and keeping a large amount. It feels earned to reach a level with 300 rings, whereas in this game, you barely put in the effort and whoa, look, you're at 500. F-tier stage, man. It never fails to amaze me how many levels I don't like in this game. Oh boy, Aqua Road. Mystic Jungle seems like the area in this game with the worst selection of levels, as this one is boring and bad too. There's 10 seconds with one alternate path, then you reach the water slide. I don't hate this idea, it kinda reminds me of the bobsled in Cool Edge, and that's one of my favourite Sonic stages of all time. It just lost 70% of the level here. At this point you should just expect a burst wisp section to skip the actual gameplay. And yeah, that's it too. I at least enjoy my time on the slides enough to the point where I don't despise it. You can even get some cool moments where you fly off and land on a different slide. Still, D tier, but not insulting at least. Recognize this. Yep, the direct halfway point of the game is the first look we ever had of it. Man, it must have been soul crushing seeing this back during the release. How does the level hold up? Well, much like the placement of the level in the game, I'd say this one's right around the middle of my ranking too. It has a good mix of boring automation and tolerable 3D and solid 2D segments. The whole level sort of feels like you're going through the motions. Boost over here, jump around here, homing attack here. There's no flow, but not necessarily god-awful design. I can see a world in which this level's one of my favorites, because I adore the Shadow Gens version. I won't compare the two, however, it's not like I placed a direct comparison of the two on screen right now. God man, I want to talk about that game again. Anyways, yeah, I feel nothing towards this stage, so into the bottom of C tier you go. Hey guys. Good level jump scare! Capital City is my favourite Avatar stage and my 5th favourite in the whole game. You remember when I was talking about the infinite hallucination thing and how it should be used in more levels? Well, infinite appears throughout the level to flip your gravity, and it's super cool. I especially love this part where you reach a dead end but the gravity flips and you have to go back the way you came. There's a huge sense of scale with the environment, there's barely any automation, and there are these massive infinite creatures that break the pathway, which, fun fact, were originally going to be models for a perfect chaos fight. I'm sorry, did I catch you off guard? I'm not going into this yet, so wait for the story problems when we'll talk in depth about this. That missed potential doesn't detract from my enjoyment, however, as I overall find this level consistently enjoyable the whole way through. A tier, for as good as the best levels and colours. On to the second infinite fight now, and this is my favourite boss fight in the game. It's mainly because of the whole taking damage makes the boss harder thing, yes, but there are some attacks that are actually kinda difficult to avoid and are fun to dodge. You can beat this in under a minute, yes, all thanks to the burst wisp on dealing absurd damage to him, but everything surrounding that major problem is cool enough to the point where I actually like this. It's towards the top of B tier. Good job, Sonic team, you actually made a decently fun boss. Now onto dog shit again. Chemical Plant, they fucking did it again. How the shit? This is the level I was talking about earlier that shows how awful the slope physics are. Look at this. I'm not gaining speed on these ramps, I'm just meandering down. You can only gain speed on ramps by rolling, which is just kinda stupid as there are routes you can only reach by going fast off of these ramps. This also has the same problem as Green Hill, where the level design isn't necessarily awful, but it just steals from Sonic 2's Chemical Plant, so there's no identity to this level. There's also more waiting here too, just... what's the point? D tier. Red Gate Bridge. Simply explaining everything in this level will be enough to show you its awfulness. 6.5 seconds of running forward, QTE. 3 inputs required in 23.5 seconds. 5 more seconds of running, then we get jump scared by a boss against Metal Sonic. All you do is quick step around the most basic obstacles, then homing attack the rubble around him to defeat him. Once you do it 4 times, you double boost him, and the level ends. There is literally zero actual gameplay in this level, and the boss fight is easier than all previous ones combined. The fact that I don't see anyone talking about this level is a crime. It is easily one of the worst things in this entire game. It wastes Metal Sonic as a character. More than 2/3 of the level is automated thanks to the first part before the fight and the long as hell attack animations, and the quote-unquote boss fight doesn't do a single thing remotely interesting. This level isn't even classed as a boss fight for some reason. It is one of the most pathetic excuses for a level in this entire franchise. F tier, my third least favorite stage in the game. Oh look, Guardian Rock has another burst to skip moment. Crazy. Like a lot of the Avatar's levels, there's a decent flow here that is quite unexpected for a character with no boost, but the whole level is just forgettable. I'm sure I'll forget all about this at each part of the process of making this video. There's a super easy quick stepping section at the end with this big crab robot guy, and it would ruin the stage on any normal day, but the set piece looks pretty cool, so I can just barely tolerate it. Only barely though, C tier. Network Terminal. Now this is the stage I think I'd like if it was in a functional Sonic game. The first part is just another rail grinding segment which isn't too bad, it's just forgettable. Now the 2D part inside of the chemical plant however is actually quite good. Or at least it would be if the game controlled well. This level is one where the controls really mess you up badly. I reached the 15-hour mark roughly when completing this stage and gathering all the collectibles, so you'd think by then I'd be used to the controls. But no, you always go further than you'd expect or you stop way too quickly. There's no in between. It got to the point where I basically went insane trying to record a single competent playthrough of this stage. I could have killed someone out of rage due to this game's controls. There's one final 5-second 3D segment at the end where you jump once to reach a red ring that takes you to the end, which is easier than taking the other two routes presented. This game keeps giving you the fastest route in the easiest way. There's a stage coming up that does this as well. Overall, the stage itself is saved due to the pretty solid 2D section, but I personally dislike it due to the annoying as balls controls. C tier. Death Egg has by far the most automation and boring moments of all of the classic Sonic stages in the game. There are these elevator sections where you can avoid the incoming bullets by staying in the middle. You don't need to change strategy, this is the same with all of them. There are also these long sections of waiting on these, what do you even call them, and it's so boring. Please let me be done. The level design is just barely not awful though, as there are some cool moments like when the gravity flips and stuff. I also kinda like these blue dot platforms that appear and change, which can change the route you're taking. These positives are enough to get this stage out of F tier for me, but only barely. D tier. Okay, we have had a streak of complaining for the last few stages, so let's get back to some good ones. Metropolitan Highway. Whilst the 3D sections are all pretty much just the awful boost to win stuff we've seen before, the 2D sections are where it's at. We are introduced to these platforms that wait a bit, move quickly to a wall, and then stop. This stage gets quite a bit of use out of them. For example, when the opposing wall is a spike, so you have to jump early to avoid them, or when a faster path is during the quick move across, so you jump midway. There are even some small time saves you can incorporate by jumping at the right times. It's pretty damn fun. I only wish the whole level was built around them, as they only get used in this part of the level. These sections are fun enough to make this my third favourite stage in the game. Another S tier. Good job guys, and the compliments don't stop here thanks to the next stage. Null Space. I'll have some choice words for this later on in the story talk, but as a stage you play, this is the most inventive and creative the game gets. It starts with a double boost, which isn't ideal, yes, but I'm glad we're getting this out of the way instead of leaving it for the end or some random point in the middle. Once we're out of Null Space, we can pretty much go wherever we want. This is one of the only fully 3D stages in the game, and it takes advantage of that by actually having split paths that last more than 5 seconds. This stage also finally utilizes the Wispons in creative ways that aren't just a way to skip the level. You can go different ways depending on the Wispon you have. It's genuinely cool. Do you want to use the Burst Wispon to go here, or the Lightning one to go here? It's your choice. It was genuinely fun seeing all the different routes you can take, and always shocking how big the stage truly was. It also has a genuinely challenging S-rank that was kinda satisfying to beat, man. Why'd they cook here but nowhere else? With all the other stages in the game, there are clear problems that drag them down, even in the good ones, like the boost to win moments in Metropolitan Highway and the short uneventful 3D in Egggate, but here, I have no major problems other than it should have been longer. This is my absolute favourite stage in the game, and I'd say it's as good as the best stages in colours, like Asteroid Coaster Act 1 and Tropical Resort Act 1. Easy S tier stage for anyone's playthrough. And the compliments don't stop there, as Imperial Tower is one of the best Avatar stages too. Yes, it has even more burst to skip moments throughout the entire stage, which is a major drawback, but the actual 2D platforming is pretty damn good. Jumping around the laser balls and the enemies is a pretty fun time, and the impending massive laser towards the end adds a ton of intensity to the final section, if you can even realize there is one. On my first playthrough, I blasted through all of this to the point where I didn't even realize there was a massive laser chasing me, not even in the final running bit. I could have been an idiot, but still, that's a little stupid. Overall, a B tier stage, but at the top as there's some good moments here. Oh man, Mortar Canyon. This stage was widely considered a highlight for most people at launch, and you can see why. The music is incredible, the downwards trajectory of the layout is fun, and there are a ton of branching paths. However, none of these paths you can take are faster than the main one. None! You can literally just jump and boost over every obstacle in the level if you're good enough. Look at this branching path moment here, which way do you think is faster? Well, newsflash, it's actually going straight forward. This jump pad takes you to the other side with zero skill involved. This should be towards the bottom of the list. It is absolutely absurd in terms of level design. But after playing this level for God knows how long to get everything, I started to get invested. The music started to click with me more. I started thinking about the intention of the story here, and the voice acting over the stage really clicked with me.
Evacuate the flagship! All hands, abandon ship! Sorry, Sonic. We've done all we can. Good luck out there.
It is a genuinely investing stage that does a good job of telling the true final push to win this war better than any cutscene did in the game. For this reason, I placed this stage at the top of C tier, thanks to the power of music and people talking. Welcome to the final infinite fight in the game. I wonder what wacky things he'll be doing this time. Maybe a mix of both previous fights? Let's find out.
What would you like your epitaph to read? How about, here lies the blue buffoon?
Oh my god, it's the fucking Metal Sonic again. Why the shit is this game £35? They did this. The only things they changed are some of the attacks. The tactics you use are the same as before, but with a new coat of paint. At least the funny infinite hallucination moments return, so that's the single positive of this fight. DTR. They really do dial up the double boost usage towards the end here, don't they? The final classic Sonic stage, Iron Fortress. This is both the best and worst classic Sonic stage in the game, for very different reasons. On one hand, these circle things you're flying off are quite fun and give you a lot of speed and shortcut opportunities. But on the other hand, there's an auto-scrolling segment in a Sonic game. Auto-scrolling takes away all potential for speed and completely ruins the pace of the stage. Kind of. Instead of being the only good classic Sonic stage and the best, it's just the best, and that's that. Classic Sonic did not need to be here at all. D tier, but at the top. Holy shit. Are you ready to see what the final main stage of this game houses? Like, actually, are you mentally prepared to see this thing? I'll give you a moment, then I'll begin. Here we go. The 3D gameplay lasts 40 seconds and is exclusively easy quick-stepping. Quick-stepping peaks in the second Avatar stage and is never elaborated upon again. You grind on rails for like 2 seconds in the middle for no reason, and the rails electrocute you with a tail, but there's basically no reason for this as they can only get 2 strikes in before you're off. What comes next is one of the worst 2D sections in the game. All you do is fire at these generator thingies and... oh wait, that's it. Sorry for hyping you up or anything. Then you double boost for 17 seconds and it's over. That's it. The final stage is easy quick-stepping destroying things in the same fashion as always with no difference. Cutscene. The fact that I don't see people talking about this stage is absolutely insane to me. It's probably because they all forgot it existed, which I can't blame them for. People like to rag on Luminous Forest and the classic Sonic stages for the reasons I've already laid out, but this is a stage that is supposed to test the skills you've learned throughout your playthrough. This is one final challenge before the finale, and it barely even qualifies as a stage at all. This is, without a doubt, the absolute worst stage in the game, the worst boost stage out of all of them, and one of the worst stages in the entire franchise. Please, talk about how pathetic this stage is. I bet you forgot it existed because of how nothing it is. I can't be the only one shocked here, right? Right? Oh, well, we made it to the final boss, versus Death Egg Robot. There are 3 phases to this thing, all utilizing the 3 main gameplay styles this game has to offer. The first is just an extremely slightly more interesting version of the Egg Dragoon fight from before. It's ass and lasts a minute, moving on. The avatars is similar to the Zavok fight, but the hitboxes are even easier to dodge than before, as you have a weapon with the hitbox the size of the stage Jungle Joyride from Unleashed. He breaks the floor for the final attack, but it's not interesting enough to make this part fun. Finally, this weird thingy comes out of the robot and sends you to Null Space, where you quickstep its attacks and boost towards him to deal pot shots of damage each time. I ain't gonna sugarcoat it, this is just a worse version of Color's final boss. In that one there are different versions of the attacks he pulls, but here, it's just the same stuff over and over again for 3 minutes straight. Finally, you triple boost him at the end with the power of friendship, ending this 5-minute fight and ending the main game off. Overall, this boss fight is just underwhelming and boring, but I don't think it's terrible. It's not insulting like the third Infinite and Metal Sonic fights, but it definitely isn't interesting, at least in terms of gameplay. This is a D tier boss and my 3rd least favourite fight in the game. And that is every stage in Sonic Forces talked about, or at least every stage in the main game. We still have 3 additional stages left from the Shadow DLC, which are all modified, harder versions of stages from the main game. Let's begin with Enemy Territory. First of all, Westopolis remix, baby, yeah! Not only does this have a bangin' remix, it also has quite the fun design. The harder Sunset Heights moments are better at least, but the 2D sections once again are where the stage cooks. Visually it's pretty boring, yes, with a tile block set, but there's a decent amount you're doing, and going through the spike ball sets is pretty satisfying. Overall, I'd give this stage an A. It could have been more, but I'm pretty satisfied. Even then, I'll just play the Shadow Generations version anyway, lamau. Eggman's Facility is a remix of Aqua Road, so it still has a ton of the same problems, like the boring water slide, but it does give more to do during them. For example, a golden beetle appears which releases a 10 ring once defeated, so you're encouraged to destroy as many of those as possible. It's still not ideal, but hey, it makes these sections more fun. C tier. And finally, Virtual Reality. This stage takes from Guardian Rock, but feels more like an improved version of what the first stage laid out here. The cycle gameplay is in full force and encourages you to be risky with how you play, and it's genuinely fun. The S ranks in general for this DLC are pretty hard, but this one is especially difficult to the point where you have to play pretty much perfectly to even get an A. This is definitely one of the best stages in the game, and is my 4th favourite, A tier. And that is every stage in the game, right? There's no 30-second extra stages that are focused around a single mechanic and are really unnecessary, are there? Okay, time to rip the band-aid off, there's 13 more stages. I won't talk about them much or even rank them amongst the rest of the stages, so let's just blast through these so we can finally move on. Fire Cannon 1. Avoid the fire, skip the cycles, it's boring, D tier. Vanish Panel 1. Jump before the platforms disappear. You do the same thing 3 times in a row, F tier and the worst one of these. Bomb Block 1. Make the bombs explode or not explode, they go fast when they are. It was okay, C tier. Plasma Cannon 1. Avoid the shooty things. Has an okay flow if you do it well, B tier. Laser Cannon 1. The best type of these by far. Fully focuses on the cycle gameplay and is pretty alright, B tier. Reverse block 1, shoot the things or don't shoot the things, kill the enemy, C tier. Flying pod, these stupid enemies are annoying and bad, F tier. Bomb block 2, the same thing again but better, C tier. Laser cannon 2, the same thing again but better, B tier, and the best one of these. Reverse block 2, the same thing again but better, C tier. Can you see a pattern here? Vanish panel 2, the same thing again but barely any better, F tier. Fire cannon 2, the same thing again but better, C tier. Plasma cannon 2, the same thing again but better, B tier. I have no strong feelings about any of these. Here's the tier list, and let's get out of here. So, playing this game in comparison with all the other Boost Sonic games really goes to show how this one fails in just about every aspect. The levels are automated with heavy focus on quick stepping and 2D, with very few actual inputs or reaction time obstacles that are required a lot of the time. The levels have no significant branching paths or shortcuts, and if there are, they last about 5 seconds and save barely any time 90% of the time. The levels are super short, lasting on average around 90 seconds, and a lot of the time in those levels you straight up aren't playing. Not only is the level design itself awful, but the controls don't complement the stages, and are always awkward and annoying to use even after playing the game for a while. Each stage has its own unique, awful problems, which I've already talked about, and overall, they're just not fun. Of course, there are some good ones here and there, like Null Space, but honestly, they just make me more upset as they give us a glimpse into what could have been. We're nearly done talking about the gameplay, so let's go over some final, miscellaneous aspects before finally touching on the story. Before we talk about anything to do with the story, there's one last aspect of the gameplay I have to mention: the collectibles. This game uses the red ring system that was popularized in Colors, which is an already solid system for collectibles, so it works. Problems arise, however, when you get to the other two types. You have to collect the numbered rings in numbered order counting down from 5 to 1, and it's super easy every time. They are either always on the same path, or you have to deviate a teensy bit. The moon rings are timed, so you have to collect them all quickly or they all dissipate. These are fine, there's nothing wrong with these systems. My problem is that you have to get all the red rings before getting all the numbered rings, and you have to get all the numbered rings before getting all the moon rings. You can easily grab them all in a single playthrough as they are all spaced out evenly throughout the stages, so what's the point? You need to beat all 27 main stages at least 3 times for no reason other than inflating the amount of time you spend in the game. This was absolute hell! I gave up towards the end and just looked up where everything was without trying because it was so monotonous. I'd say it would have been better to keep them all in at once, because it would have added a ton to the stages if you could beat them once with everything collected. That would have been so satisfying. Anyways, the other bonus content doesn't fare much better either. There is obviously the different clothing for your avatar, which is cool, but there's just not enough to make it something I'm attached to. I exclusively make joke characters because I can't think of a way to make a serious one. It's not that big of an issue, of course, it's a character creator after all, but still, it would have been nice to have more. There are missions which are basically the most basic things you can do in a stage to get 4 new avatar parts, like spin dashing in stage 10 or crouching in stage 6. You also get a daily mission bonus if you do them, which allows you to get S ranks a lot easier. Everyone give it up for the most fair ranking system ever! There are SOS missions that appear sometimes, which are just beating a stage with an avatar from some random guy online. It adds nothing. There are obviously the rankings of how fast people have beaten stages, which are definitely not hacked, not at all. And the achievements on Steam range from, oh yeah, that makes sense, to, I'm not reaching the highest Medal of Honors for each avatar, man, that'll take like 50 hours. So yeah, in conclusion, the bonus content is not worth drudging through, as it's not fun, and you gain nothing doing so. That is every single problem I can think of with the gameplay. I have not skipped any aspect that I can think of. Let's move on to the story, which has its own can of problems. As I've said before in this video, I don't think the story is flawed due to its fundamentals. I think the concepts are really cool, in fact. A Sonic game focusing on war and the struggle for justice is an inspired choice, and could lead to some of the most compelling, fascinating character moments in the franchise. Bringing back villains like Chaos and Metal Sonic could lead to some really cool recreations of moments from the franchise, like a perfect Chaos refight and a Metal Overlord refight. This could also show how far the characters have come since first taking these guys on. Sonic is captured by Eggman and tortured for 6 months. This could lead to an arc of him forgetting who or what he represents to the people around him, but the Avatar and his friends could get him back on the right track towards the end. I haven't read them, but apparently the Archie comics were doing something like this in their final arc before their cancellation, and seeing a version of that arc completed in a game would have been the best thing ever, man. The Avatar and Infinite are a great representation of going down 2 paths of feeling inferior. Infinite tries his hardest to put everyone down around him because that's what happened to him, and the Avatar learns from Sonic and the gang to not let his fear own them, or to let the words of Infinite get to their head. There are more ideas the story represents that I'll get into when the time comes, but do you see what I mean? There is so much potential with what the game presents to us. And what does it do with that potential? Well, let's see what Shadow's theme from Sonic Adventure 2 is called to see what they did. God damn it. Upon clicking New Game, we are met with a cutscene of Eggman expressing his hatred for Sonic and explaining that his new invention will allow him to take over the world. He laughs, Orbit and Cupid mention that he's locked in, just in case we didn't get that, and we get a glimpse of Infinite in a test tube. This isn't necessarily a bad way to introduce the main villains, but it is when you realize this is literally the same thing as what he does in so many previous games. He does this in Unleashed.
The entity that was sealed within the planet has awakened. Now I just need to harness its power. Eggman Land will finally come to be.
Colors.
When it is, it will be the crown jewel of my amusement park. The greatest amusement park in the universe.
Even Adventure 1.
You know nothing, fool. It's Chaos, the god of destruction.
This is nothing new, so we really don't have a good idea on how powerful this new invention really is, in a bad way. We're just like, oh, what's he got this time that will destroy effortlessly again? That's not cool. You're then thrusted into Lost Valley, where Tails tells Sonic to come to the city as Eggman is attacking. I do quite like that a ton of the exposition is through the gameplay, and it's very rare that a character's dialogue will be interrupted, almost like they built the levels with the dialogue in mind. However, everything surrounding that story-wise is The music is far too upbeat and hype for the scenario. Good, yes, but unfitting. And there's no visual clarity on a war going on. Yeah, there's sand everywhere, and Green Hill's looking a lot more like Sand Hill right now, but that doesn't convey war. The most we get is the foliage looking a little burnt, but it's barely noticeable because of all the sand. War is dark, dingy, and serious, so having a bright color scheme going into a cutscene where Sonic supposedly dies, as well as the fact that he's just quipping all the time, is such huge tonal whiplash in a bad way. Sometimes you can use tonal whiplash to your advantage to convey how shocking something truly is, but this doesn't do it well at all and just feels awkward. Anyways, in the cutscene following the level, Sonic helps out Tails and a bunch of nameless avatars, and Eggman introduces everyone. Shadow, Zavok, Metal Sonic, Chaos, and finally Infinite. Sonic goes for Infinite, but he dodges swiftly, and Tails just watches as Sonic gets absolutely railed from all ends by everyone. The Tails I know would be joining in the battle and attempting to defeat guys in his own unique way, not trying to scan this motherfucker for info. Sonic eventually falls, and we get text that explains important plot information that carries over into the direct next cutscene. It explains that Eggman quickly took over most of the world after Sonic's defeat and subsequent capture. A collection of characters have banded together to try and take back the world, and a new guy is about to join them. This would be quite nice if we actually saw it happen. Even just a few little snippets of some bad guys killing some avatars would have been nice. Also, Tails, Sonic is right there. Grab him and fly off. Millions of deaths could have been avoided if your writing was consistent between the adventure games and here. Oh man, it's so annoying. The next cutscene shows off the Resistance talking amongst themselves about their situation. It feels a lot like exposition for the sake of letting the player know what's going on, instead of an actual meeting about what to do next. Also, Silver says something that goes completely against his character.
I'm an optimist, but I'm also a realist.
Huh? In 06, your whole thing was that you kept fighting Iblis because you were optimistic about a better future. You were the one that got the gang back to fighting after Sonic's death and the subsequent end of the world because of your drive for a better world. You couldn't be further from a realist, so this line makes no goddamn sense. Also, there's the whole thing of why he's even here if he's from the future that got erased in '06. But that's a whole other can of worms that I've pretty much already described the problem with in the question itself. Apparently Tails has lost it, which is why he isn't with the others. SBO explicitly states that they've been fighting, waiting for something to happen for 6 months. Keep that in mind. This is where the Avatar is introduced, where we could see them in the next cutscene. Oh god, what is that? Yeah, I forgot to change my avatar for these cutscenes, but it's funny, so I don't care. Knuckles is introduced as the commander of the Resistance. Okay, sure, I can tolerate that. Also, I have a personal grudge against this part.
Whatever it is that finished Sonic. Sorry, I'm still not used to saying that.
It just pisses me off, I'm not sure why. Anyways, people comment on how the avatar looks kind of underwhelming and you get a wisp on. I believe the disappointing remarks are supposed to add to the character arc for the avatar of being confident in yourself and not letting other people's thoughts get to you, but I don't know. Anyway, Sonic's alive. You know that build-up the game was presenting about the gang trying to make it on their own in this war? Yeah. It doesn't matter. Because he's actually alive and tension isn't real. This game has a lot of these exposition dumps before levels, mainly to tell you why you're there and what you're doing. You know how Adventure 2 had these brief messages before the level loads telling you what you're doing story-wise? No? Well, neither did the devs here it seems. Also, when the hell did Knuckles get a spy? This is the only time they ever mention it, I swear, and I only realized this upon rewatching the scene. Sonic's in space, we're gonna save him, go to the chemical plant to get a shuttle. From this point onwards, I'll focus on the fully animated cutscenes as they are the ones with the main story details, but I'll mention any annoying things the dialogue in between has as we go. There's nothing significant in the level itself, so onto this cutscene. Oh boy. I'm gonna play most of this cutscene first, then go over everything wrong with it, as it is by far the worst one in the game.
That should have done it. I couldn't figure it out for you, buddy. I'm sorry I wasn't smart enough. Huh? Whoa! Chaos! Sonic, help me! Sonic? You're alive! Wait, what? Oh, you're that Sonic from another dimension, aren't you? Right, that makes sense, I think.
There are 6 entire problems here, at completely different intervals. So let's begin. Firstly, why is Tails having trouble fixing Omega? Omega's an old-ass robot Eggman made forever ago at this point, and Tails completely changed the programming of Eggman's most recent invention in the previous game. How is he not smart enough to fix this dude? Next problem, Miles Tails Prower is afraid of Chaos Zero and calls for Sonic's help. Not only did Tails supposedly overcome his fear and grow confidence in Adventure 1, but he also defeated a version of Chaos more powerful in that game too. Why is he afraid? It makes no goddamn sense. And you want to know what the third problem is? This is the only other time you see Chaos. He was a big part of the marketing, he's got a Steam card, he's considered on the same level of importance as the others, and there's not even a time you can kill him in actual gameplay. Not even a QTE in a level. This is practically false marketing, and not even the only time the game does something like this. Fourth problem, why the hell is Classic Sonic here? He just emerges from a void with no explicit reason as to this void existing in the first place. He arrives and immediately destroys Chaos with no problems. This is another bonus problem I just thought up of on the spot. How did he kill him in one hit? He took effort to kill Chaos Zero back in Adventure 1, which took place after every classic Sonic game, so what gives? How is he more powerful as a stupid baby instead of a Sigma adult? Actual problem 5, this line.
Dimension, aren't you?
It is insane how they just forgot what Sonic Generations established. You're wrong, Tails. This is Sonic from the past due to time travel shenanigans. This is the most basic plot detail from Generations, and they just ignored it to create the most obvious continuity error I've ever seen. The final problem is more of just me being confused.
Right, that makes sense, I think.
No, it doesn't! You mean to say, a younger Sonic appearing out of a random void after your current Sonic's supposed death and taking care of a threat directly in front of you makes sense? Shut the hell up, man. This is up there as one of, if not the worst cutscene in Sonic history. There is no redeeming this absolute travesty of storytelling. Anyways, after that insult to the franchise and the first classic Sonic level with no interesting tidbits, we get a flashback scene of the Avatar's history with Infinite. This shows how terrified they were at this point, as Infinite mocks them, letting them live if they flee. This isn't a bad way of building up the confidence that grows within the Avatar as the story grows, but I think it would have been so much cooler and more terrifying if they only showed a few dark tidbits whenever the Avatar and Infinite interact. Think about Kung Fu Panda 2, where Po is reminded of the scars of his past thanks to seeing a few small glimpses of what destroyed his family. Doing something like that here would have done wonders to show the trauma that the Avatar has, but it's barely even realized at all. Again, this isn't a bad scene, it just could have been changed to something much greater. The next dialogue is very important, so listen up. Apparently, Sonic hasn't been sent to space yet and will be now, thanks to Eggman's empire finally being complete. In all this time before the banishment to space, he's been tortured. Tortured! Imagine what Eggman does to Sonic in the intro to Unleashed, but for 6 months straight. That's basically what they're saying happened to Sonic since his supposed death. That is an absurdly long time, which would surely leave some traumatic scars on him. Also, we don't know where Sonic is being held captive, but actually we do thanks to Rouge. He's on the Death Egg, that massive thing in the sky that anyone would notice is being owned by Eggman. Also, this line from Knuckles is just crazy.
None of this is good, Vector. That's why it's called war.
So we're off to snag him from space now. Yippee! Not a lot here is bad in and of itself. In fact, I quite like the build-up here aside from Rouge just kinda knowing where Sonic is. Maybe a level or two before to get information would have been nice. Anyways, keep the major details in your mind as we move to the next cutscene, as it's super important. Before we actually get into that cutscene, however, I want to mention how a lot of things that are talked about in dialogue are barely ever noticeable in gameplay. For example, in this next Avatar stage, Knuckles states that other forces are dealing with enemies around the Death Egg. It would have been so sick to have a set piece or two where you'd run past or even help them, seeing how they're holding up. It could add so much to immersion, but the game basically never does this. Another thing, the alarm goes off towards the end of the level. It would have been awesome if the lights turned red, explosions started happening, and the enemies were more frequent and were more difficult. That would have made the section truly feel like a rush, and whilst it's still fun to play through, these small details go a long way towards immersion. Okay, that's just a few examples of what the levels themselves could have done to increase the vibe of the story, so I won't go over every little thing I can come up with. Just know that stuff like this is very frequent across most stages. Now, let's move to the next cutscene. Sonic's here, and Zavok. Okay, not the best guard you could have picked, Eggman, but oh well, let's see what he does.
Oh, wow. The end, huh? Let's see you try something now that I'm free.
He goes into Sonic's cage, breaks off his chains, and tries to kill him. Bro, do I even need to explain why this is the worst tactical decision he could have made? I will anyway, as this video is comprehensive. So, you got defeated by Sonic not once, but twice in the last game. Not a ton of time has passed since, and he looks the exact same as he did in that game, so I highly doubt he has gotten any stronger. Why the hell would you just give Sonic a fighting chance to defeat you if you already have him captive? Just keep him in the chains and stab him. It's not that hard. Your pride is not important here, dumbass. The thing that confuses me the most, however, is how they both act like Sonic got out himself. Their dialogue here isn't saying anything about Zavok doing it, even though that's the only possibility here. It's not like any other character could have turned off his chains off screen or something. There's nothing that implies this. I can only assume Zavok decided he could take Sonic on for no damn reason, or another reason I would talk about at a reveal made later on. On the other side of the spectrum, Sonic is him. He's like his average annoying meta self from this era without any semblance of trauma or anything from being tortured for 6 months. I've already explained what they could have done with this plot detail, so the fact that they literally ignore it is just so lame. I mean, Sonic literally talks about chili dogs at the end of the fight, which is actually a detail about the character that's barely ever mentioned. But here, it feels so shoehorned in thanks to what people see Sonic as. Stuff like this happens throughout the whole game. A plot detail comes up, gets you interested in what could happen thanks to that detail, and then they just ignore it or barely explore it at all. Anyways, Zavok dissipates after the fight, which I think is supposed to make you wonder what is going on with the return of these characters. But the problem is that the game barely ever focuses on stuff like this. There's nothing that actively implies that these characters are carbon copies of the real deal, so the reveal is not interesting and disappointing at the same time. To give credit where it's due, at least the writers didn't forget that Sonic doesn't know where he's being held captive, thanks to the reveal during Eggate. In general, I actually kinda like the dialogue Sonic has in this level. It shows him contemplating in real time about what to do and where to go, which is a nice glimpse into how his thoughts run at high speeds like this. Yeah, there's the usual boring and not funny quips, but overall, it's not bad. After Eggate, we see the Avatar being cornered when Sonic saves him. Call me crazy, but I think it would have been better for this to happen 1, before the Zavok fight, and 2, have the roles reversed. Seeing our Avatar save Sonic the Hedgehog from certain doom would have been so cool, and I think the fans this game was appealing to would have liked that a lot better as an introduction instead. After the characters talk over one another SA2 style,
Is there an exit around here?
we make it back to the shuttle and Sonic's back on Earth. Or is it Mobius? That's something that's always confused me. Tell me in the comments. Anyways, the next level has us goes to Green Hill to destroy one of Eggman's factories supplying weapons and stuff to Metropolis. Gonna be honest, I didn't have a clue that this level was supposed to be Green Hill, thanks to both the design completely ignoring the green in Green Hill, and the fact that you're outside for 10% of the level. This level is the first time double boost is used too, so let's keep a tally of double boost users in the corner. The fact that these levels are so easy and effortless to go through also makes the Eggman Empire seem so much more pathetic than it should, by the way. Anyhow, surprise! Silver's finding a dude in Mystic Jungle. Go help him. What happened to the factory? Who cares, we're over here now. We know it's Infinite, the wacky guy who killed Sonic, so let's go and meet him. There's the usual not Warzone style of the place, and there's no explanation for the snake, it just lives here I guess. So Infinite! During Silver and Infinite's fight, he drops a ruby thing that will be imperative to the story later, so remember this. Silver gets cooked and Sonic comes in for a wacky, silly conversation with no signs of trauma or fear from Sonic. How zany, right? Why is Silver cooked but not Sonic, by the way? Silver is as strong, maybe stronger than Sonic in 06, so the power balancing here isn't adding up. Also, this is the only time in the game where Infinite's theme plays, which is super disappointing. Yeah, remixes play during the fights, but come on, I want to know what it takes to be Infinite. Take a look at this line.
Well, look who's back from the dead. The little blue savior.
You mean to tell me that Infinite thought that Sonic was dead? Maybe I'm overreacting and Infinite is using that false info to trigger something in Sonic. But still, that's such a dumb thing to say. Oh yeah, the gang don't even know Infinite's name at this point, so he kindly explains it. And then Sonic goes on this long joke tangent that's not funny and dumb, my god. I guess they want to know how Infinite is so powerful, so Sonic tries directly asking him for some reason. Like he's gonna tell you, man. I don't know why Sonic is able to take Infinite down here. It's not like there's a huge amount of time between Sonic's escape and now, so how did he grow powerful enough to get a few good shots here? Anyways, Infinite pins him down, does the edgy thing of not letting him live because he's so unbelievably below him, so he'll be a non-issue when the time comes. God, such an awful trope. Just let Silver come back and overwhelm Infinite, then he can leave realizing it's not worth continuing the fight. It's that simple. Back to my favorite squad. Tails still doesn't know that the main Sonic is alive at this point, and they go off to Green Hill to find Eggman. Also, how did Tails not know what happened to Green Hill? There's just so many little details that I keep finding with this game that add up to make it more and more stupid and annoying, man. Let's sneakily watch Eggman and Infinite's meeting in the middle of Green Hill with no guards and no safety measures. If I have to admit something, Eggman is actually decently smart in this game, with backup plans to his backup plans and everything. They talk about the Phantom Ruby prototypes and how they're all destroyed now, every single one, not one broken. Eggman is rightfully flabbergasted that Infinite let Sonic live back in Mystic Jungle, and the logic Infinite hits him back with isn't completely airtight. So Tails now knows that Sonic is alive and about the Phantom Ruby prototypes. Yeah, let's kill him.
Yeah! We did it!
You're wrong, Tails, I did it. Classic Sonic did it whilst you watched and bantered. Again, Eggman is quite alright in this game with a scare tactic by telling the Resistance about a plan that will destroy the world in 3 days. He doesn't tell them what it is, just that it's happening. Smart move, dude. Kind of. The Avatar goes off to the city to help save it. You know, this level would have been a good one for Infinite and Avatar to meet up again. It's the same location as the cutscene and would have led to a pretty compelling scene where the Avatar runs away again, reminding us of that plot point, and leading to a more compelling redemption later on. This is probably the level with the least story stuff in it, so let's move on. Tails and Classic Sonic go to the casino to find Sonic. That's literally it. The Avatar is off to the lab where Silver and Sonic fought Infinite thanks to some strange readings there. Once we get there, we find that Phantom Ruby prototype Infinite dropped before, and some familiar faces show up. Oh god, calm down!
It's been generations since I seen you. You okay?
I absolutely despise when an almost objectively worst piece of media references another from the franchise. It makes the title seem so full of itself. Once Tails fills everyone in on the info he's gotten, we get to see that we have successfully pushed back Eggman's forces in some areas, giving us some of the world back. Again, this feels very superfluous, like it's telling us how stuff's going instead of showing us. After pondering on what the plan of Eggman's could be, Shadow is reported to be attacking the city. I should mention that the city has no name, it's literally called City. That makes this 10 times harder. Shadow's a good guy, so him working for Eggman is a little strange. So after the gang speculate on why he's working with him, Sonic speeds off, and what happens next is pretty underwhelming. So, we meet Shadow. What's his deal? Well, he rushes towards us when another Shadow appears and takes the original one down, saying it's a faker. He then explains that Infinite can create fake versions of existing characters thanks to the Phantom Ruby. They are as powerful as the original, but not the exact same. Shadow, the ultimate life form, explicitly states that we cannot win this battle, and Sonic copes by saying that we just haven't figured it out yet. First of all, why can Shadow use Chaos Control here? This would mean that bro has a Chaos Emerald, and doesn't bring that shit up. That could easily level the playing field, and we just don't care as it would completely overpower Infinite's powers, so we just ignore it. Secondly, what a limp way of explaining the clone thing. Just having Shadow appear and say they clones Lamau is so uninteresting and lame compared to the characters finding it out from the villains or something. Surely that weapons facility from earlier or the place where we got the Phantom Ruby prototype had at least something about this, right? Finally, Shadow's appearance does not feel satisfying as we didn't do anything about him getting over here. He literally just rocks up and that's it. His appearance is further elaborated in the episode Shadow DLC, so we'll get into that once we reach the end of the main game story in like 40 minutes of something. This script is so long, my god. Right, so Knuckles has the plan to take down Eggman's forces at his main base in Metropolis. He calls it Operation Big Wave, and he came up with it in a minute and a half. After a bunch of other random banter about what the Resistance will do when they'll win, they begin the assault, to some unfavourable results, to say the least. The moment Infinite uses the Phantom Ruby, the troops scatter, and the whole world literally turns on its head. It turns out that 80% of their forces are completely wiped out, which is absolutely devastating. What is Knuckles and the others' reaction to this?
Our big wave is washed out.
This is real. I'm not exaggerating any of this. 80% of people on the team are killed. They are dead, and they only say quips about it. That is all I need to say about this scene. You can tell how stupid, pathetic, and awful this is. Something like this should get Knuckles off the team and into prison, but he's still the commanding general as if this never happened. Corruption at its finest, ladies and gentlemen. Next up is a scene where the Avatar and Infinite interact. Let's see what they'll do. I can't be bothered to pretend like they did something interesting. Infinite threatens the Avatar remembers Sonic words of encouragement, he fights back. Again, this isn't a bad concept for a character arc. Kung Fu Panda 2 does something like this fantastically. It's just that this game rushes its plot points and arcs so fast to the point where nothing feels earned. Also, the game can't decide whether or not Infinite remembers the Avatar, thanks to the lines contradicting each other.
I'm going to fight and die here, or run away in fear again. And those eyes, they feel like me before.
After their fight, the Phantom Ruby prototype falls out of the Avatar's pocket right next to him. It's right there, and they just ignore it. It's dumb and annoying. Infinite finally decides he remembers us and nearly kills us before we end up using the Phantom Ruby prototype to barely survive. We now have 2 days left before the end, so let's get moving. We're taking Classic Sonic over to Chemical Plant to gather info from Eggman's database. We know it's there thanks to intel from Rouge, who just kinda knows, I guess. This is the second time Rouge just knows something. We get the info and 10 terabytes worth of selfies, which is nice. The team now knows how the Phantom Ruby works, which is to create false information in the brain to make fake things be perceived as real to the point where they are real. You know, this would have been good info to use before Operation Big Wave, thanks to the Phantom Ruby destroying 80% of their forces, just saying. The final version of the Ruby is with Infinite. There might be a weakness though, don't know what it is, as Tails doesn't spill the beans. Let's go. Surprise! Metal Sonic's in the city, go kill him with Sonic! Fun fact, this isn't the real Metal, it's a fake created by the Phantom Ruby. Even Sonic in the game explicitly states that it's stupid to do this, as they can just create more real models. This leads on to the only other time we see Metal. Yay, and it's in my third least favourite stage. That's fun. The only reason these villains were brought back was purely for fan service. I'm sure that there are people who bought this game because they saw Shadow, Metal, or Chaos, and they wanted to see them in action again. They must have been extremely disappointed once they saw how underutilized they were in the end. There's also another double boost here, so I wouldn't be surprised if anyone forgot thanks to the super long length in between this one and the last. It's the best cutscene in the game.
Hey, that was great! We're like a well-oiled machine. Fighting a well-oiled machine. Huh?
Pure cinema, right? Tails is back with the info, and he says that we need to destroy the Death Egg to stop the energy transfer to the Phantom Ruby. The way to do this is actually not the worst idea in the world, better than Big Wave at least. Distract Eggman by creating as much noise and destruction elsewhere, whilst the squad goes and destroys the Death Egg whilst he isn't looking. They decide to use the Avatar for the distraction, which is a decent choice, as they were able to dodge an attack from the Phantom Ruby itself, which would mean that Eggman would want to get them before anyone else, most likely. I'm sure the writers didn't think of that though. You'd think that there's a silver lining of shittiness here, but not really. It's just a solid idea with decent execution, aside from the fact that the levels don't really portray much of distracting Eggman or dealing with the Death Egg. Sonic goes to shut down the weapons facility on the Death Egg so we can destroy the actual thing. Once it's down, Classic Sonic actually goes to destroy the thing. I guess they sent him because of his experience against Death Eggs in Sonics 2 and 3. Or pandering. Again, doesn't really look like the Death Egg is being destroyed when the characters say it is. But oh well. Next cutscene. Oh look, the Death Egg has crumbled. And Eggman is just conveniently watching this happen on his monitor that he probably uses to watch How to Basic or something. He's just watching it! I know we can't really do anything about it, but his reaction should at least be of some shock and annoyance thanks to him being distracted. Orbot and Cubot are wacky as always, which is insanely unfitting and awkward for the scene, and it's only 5 hours until the plan is followed through on. We've got even more of the world now, and it's time to go back to Metropolis thanks to the weaker Phantom Ruby signal. Nothing interesting happens in the level, so it's time for one of the biggest misuses of an idea in a game full of misused ideas. Sonic reaches Eggman and Infinite, to which they respond by making a massive black hole that sucks everything in called Null Space, a void of nothingness and despair. The Avatar comes along to try and save Sonic in time, but the pull of Null Space is too strong, to the point where it sucks both of them in. The question is, how did Infinite manage to do this if we destroyed the Death Egg? Well, Eggman was a little ahead of the game this time, as he created a backup power source under Metropolis, which is quite a smart move. Anyways, the Avatar and Sonic are stuck in Null Space, with seemingly no way out. How in the world can these two get out? How are they feeling in this terrible situation? What's gonna get them to keep trying if they fail? Well, I'll let the beginning of the next level tell you.
This isn't where we were meant to end up. Let's head back. Everyone's waiting for us. Double boost! We got this! Keep it up, partner! Nothing can contain the two of us at max power, not even Null Space! Sup, everyone? I missed this place.
That is it. That is the extent of the use of the Null Space plot point in Sonic Forces. You could argue that the final boss uses it too, but it looks different enough to seem like something else to me. They barely react to being locked in here. Sonic makes a wacky quip about being in the wrong place, Lamau, and they use the power of friendship to double boost out of this place. This is basically the equivalent of that one moment in Frontiers where Sonic gets trapped in cyberspace equilibrium, but at least there it felt warranted for the friends of Sonic to get him out. It affected him throughout the journey, and they expanded a ton on this moment in the Final Horizon DLC campaign. This game has none of those liberties, and overall makes this one of the most disappointing misuses of something in any game I've ever played. I love playing the level Null Space, but I despise what it stands for in the story. Anyways, we get back to Eggman and Infinite, mock them for not having friends, and then we're off to the final location in the game, the Eggman Empire Fortress. With 85% of the world in tow, we're gonna cook them like there's no tomorrow, and I'll be done with this video. It's time for the first scene of characters fighting in this game, like actually. There have been others, but this is a full-scale war, and it's the first of its kind in this game. Anyways, we meet Infinite in the middle, and we finally see the plan come to fruition. Oh wait, Omega's back. Remember when Tails tried to fix Omega in the worst cutscene ever and he was never brought up again? Well, he's here now and adds nothing to the overall story. Yay! Anyhow, the plan is to create a massive fuck-off sun that'll fall upon the world and destroy everything. This seems pretty hopeless for the war efforts, but the Avatar has a plan, thanks to Tails being useful for once. We remember we have a Phantom Ruby prototype, and we can use this to reverse the effects of Infinite's Phantom Ruby. This is it, the one chance we have to take back on the world. Let's do this.
The sun is falling in the sky beyond.
This music is so unfitting, man, it's kinda hilarious. There's nothing that happens in the level aside from the gang being scared at the end, giving us words of encouragement, Amy saying One Piece.
Come back in one piece.
So let's move on to when we're successful. We used the Phantom Ruby, and the sun is gone. Yay. What the hell are these reactions? Why are you smirking? You're about to die unless you're just so unbelievably confident that you'll live or something. Well, the tables have turned, so it's time to lock in and win this war. Next up is Mortar Canyon, and I said this before in the section about the level itself, but it deserves reiterating. This is the most invested I personally get into the story, in this 1 minute level. The most emotional part of the song comes in at the exact moment you finish the level though, which is one of the most annoying things ever. If most previous levels had kept in line with this one and had the same vibe and tone, I would have been a lot more positive about it, I think. This level is a glimpse into what the story could have been, similar how Null Space was a glimpse into what could have been for the level design. It's kind of funny because they're actually two sides of the same coin. One is a great level with awful story beats, and another one is a great vibe for the point of the story but with barely any gameplay to speak of. That's all for the level, so let's go meet Infinite. That's what we're doing here. Time to die, Infinite, you poorly written motherfucker with so much potential. Halfway through the fight, the Avatar appears to help us out, and once we kill Infinite with the power of double boost and friendship, we call him a loser and explain how important friends are. He then just flies off with zero fanfare as if he never existed. What a lame way to kill off the main antagonist, right? However, we're still not done yet, as we've got the man with the master plan to take down too. Classic Sonic goes to find where Eggman went off to, and Amy says something really out of pocket at the end of this level.
Wow! Having two Sonics is so dreamy.
What? You haven't fawned over Sonic once this whole game, and now you're saying that it's awesome to have two Sonics? Firstly, were you brain dead or something throughout the whole game until now where you realize that there's two now? And secondly, I'm pretty certain that Classic Sonic's a child, so you've got 5 minutes until you're in the cellar. Now, in the worst level in Boost Sonic history, we go to the reactor where the Phantom Ruby signal is located because, and I quote from Sonic the Hedgehog himself, "We're not normal." Apparently Infinite was made here too, which is fine, I guess. We blow up the reactor and double boost away, leading on to the final fight against Eggman. So apparently the reactor was just a decoy and this massive thing is the true thing he was hiding. I don't know anymore, let's just kill him.
Triple boost!
The clones disappear. I am released from the Force's chains, and the war is truly over. This means goodbye to Classic Sonic. I'm sure he'll be missed by someone who played this game. Classic Sonic literally had zero reason to be in this game. You could take him out and absolutely nothing would change. Literally just have Tails go do the things that Classic Sonic does. There you go. Well, it's time to clean up the mess in the real world, not the one created by the Phantom Ruby. This really wasn't a thing the game focused on, so I'm not sure why they're acting like this was a key theme, but oh well. And then Tails says true dat.
True that.
which is just the coolest thing. The post-credit scene has everyone reflecting on the journey they just went on, whilst looking forward to the future. This would definitely be such a heartwarming and satisfying moment to end the game on, if it was warranted. Like, there's nothing crazy that happens at the end here because it's just so cookie cutter and basic. Oh, we gotta go stop the sun? We stop the sun. Eggman is about to destroy the world? We stop him from destroying the world. That's why I haven't done much as of late, because there isn't much done in the story. It's so rushed and boring here compared to the crazy dumb shit from before. Anyways, the Avatar decides to leave the Resistance to help others in need, and meet Sonic outside for one more last fist bump, before grappling into the sunset. But now we gotta talk about the Shadow DLC! This part is really short, only giving us a few tidbits on why Omega's broken, what's happening with Shadow, and how Infinite came to be. Let's begin. Shadow gets a call from Rouge about a secret base Eggman owns in the city. He goes there on a recon mission to meet up with Omega, who went on ahead. For some reason, Shadow says he can do it alone, which is just not within his character, just saying. In the level itself, Omega starts going wacky-bo, talking about extermination and Rouge's elimination, foreshadowing the power of the Phantom Ruby. That's it. Surprise! Infinite! Yeah! He hella fucked up Omega and recognizes Shadow, which confuses him. We then get a flashback scene in the Flashback DLC pack, crazy, I know, to when they first met at the abandoned Eggman research facility in the Mystic Jungle. Throughout the level, we see that Eggman's mercenary squad did jack shit for him, so he becomes really ticked off and starts slagging off Infinite because of it. He then finds Shadow and attempts to get the jump on him when he is absolutely bodied. Like, completely obliterated. Shadow then calls him a worthless piece of shit with poor writing, zero drip, and no bitches. Infinite's reaction is one of being afraid, then getting ticked off at Shadow's words to the point of screaming, "I am not weak" at the top of his lungs, which then hard cuts to him getting his mask and the Phantom Ruby. So, the reason Infinite became super duper ultra omega powerful is because Shadow insulted him and he's a little crybaby. What great writing. Infinite's gonna torment Shadow now for what he did a month ago. Yay. Dude, Shadow's reaction to Infinite's words is hilarious though.
Waiting to be crushed underfoot.
So we hear the Phantom Ruby being used but don't see it until we enter the next level, where things start to get weird. Rouge is being cryptic, Omega's going haywire, and Shadow is left in the middle of things, confused and weirded out. This is all thanks to the Phantom Ruby, of course, but stuff like this could have happened throughout the whole game, not in this optional DLC. Come on, man. We end off with Infinite glazing himself, ready to kill Sonic at the beginning of the game, and Rouge comes in just barely letting Shadow get out of the facility, which collapses off-screen, ending the Shadow DLC. I mean, it's nice they tried here. Overall, the Sonic Forces story completely botches all the potential it has, with its fantastic concept and god-awful execution. Infinite's motivations as an antagonist are really pathetic and make him seem really feeble. Chaos, Metal Sonic, and other villains returning from previous games are exclusively there for pandering. They do not affect the story one bit. Chaos especially is relegated to a single cutscene, and he's never seen again. This game ignores a lot of character arcs and significant plot details from previous games, like Tails learning to be more confident in himself, and the Chaos Emeralds not being a part of the plot at all. Classic Sonic has zero reason to be a part of the story, and is also there for pandering. Null Space is barely touched upon. The time where Eggman takes over the world is relegated to white text on a black background, and no one takes the situation seriously when necessary. It is so unbelievably easy to figure out ways you can improve the story, but this video is so damn long, so I'll leave you to figure out some ways. I've already said many ways previously in the video, so yeah. So, that is every single problem with Sonic Forces. Every story aspect, every level, every collectible, everything. I wanted this video to be as comprehensive as possible, so you won't need to watch multiple separate videos to find every problem with the game. And hey, maybe you learned something new along the way. I know it sounded like I got pretty tilted throughout the video, and I apologize if I sounded too angry gamer YouTuber at points. But at the end of the day, this doesn't really matter anymore. The Sonic franchise is really locked in since this game's release, and it may be because of how awful this one was. Playing the other Boost games alongside this one really puts into perspective how lacking this one was. I truly feel awful for those who were severely disappointed upon release, and respect those who can still enjoy the game for what it is. Again, if you love this game, first of all, I'm surprised you made it this far, and secondly, that is a-okay in my books. Tell me what you like, tell me anything I may have missed. I'm all ears to what you all can come up with. I almost wish we could get a remake of this game or something, just so Ian Flynn can cook harder than he's ever cooked before. And, if you want to see a glimpse into a playable and good version of Forces, check out Sonic Forces Overclocked. It's a mod that tells an idea for what happened after the game and it's really cool. For now though, I never need to think about this game again, thank God. See you in the next review, which I'm certain won't be nearly as long as this one. Goodbye.